Out of anyone in the One Piece world, the Marine Admirals have given Luffy by far the most soul-crushing defeats yet. But on top of just being supremely powerful fighters, they also each have a complex political belief and serve as a hard level check for Luffy at many points in the story. And so I want to explain how the Admiral system exactly works and how each of them have influenced the entire story, Luffy, and even the world, and who each of these insane powerhouses actually are. And as we're going to build up to the absolute incredible impact that these characters have on the story, let's start with the most basic fact that there are actually usually only 3 Marine Admirals at once, and they represent the world government's greatest military power. Basically, this means that they are the strongest active Marines, and if we look at all the current and former Marines, they are an entire world-conquering army all by themselves. Now, in terms of ranking, the Admirals are second only to the Fleet Admiral, but when the Marines need anything important to be done, it is usually one of the Admirals who's sent to take care of some big boy work. In fact, these Admirals are so absurdly powerful that just one of them showing up is enough to send an entire island into mass panic, and the only people really capable of fighting them are other Admirals or Emperor level characters on the pirate side. Even Luffy himself has been bodied by the Admirals on not one but multiple occasions, which includes probably the single most crushing moment in the entire story, when the former Admiral Akainu killed Luffy's brother during the war at Marineford. However, the Admirals here aren't just basically weapons of mass destructions, they're also often the ones making major political decisions that end up affecting the entire story. For example, all of them have the authority to order a so-called Buster Call, which sends an entire armada of Marine warships to completely bombard and eliminate an entire island. Plus, on top of that, they basically have complete freedom to capture or kill any pirates. And on top of that, each Admiral also has their own unique philosophy of justice that influences the entire Marine organization, which we'll explain in just a minute. But at this point, you might be wondering, well, how does a Marine even end up becoming an Admiral in the first place? And honestly, as far as we can tell, it seems to be a surprisingly fair system, because the main criteria to actually become an Admiral is really 1, be a Marine, and then 2, just be ridiculously overpowered. That's basically it. Pretty simple. And we actually did see this process play out during the time skip when 2 new Admirals were selected. What's kind of interesting here though is that these new Admirals selected were apparently not part of the Marines beforehand, so they actually had to be drafted into the Marines, which does seem a little bit odd, and we'd never seen that anywhere else, but I do guess that the world government can just do that. But of course, the main reason that Fujitora and Greenbull here were selected is that they were way stronger than any other non-Admiral in the Marines, which is super important because the Admirals have basically served as Luffy's main opponents every time that he comes up against the Marines in a major battle. And so, since they fight Luffy at many points throughout the story, they can't just be some random weak character that he could just easily take out, and they actually need to challenge him so that we can see just how close Luffy actually is to becoming a top tier level character himself. Although at this point, some of the Admirals have almost no chance, as we will discuss with this mysterious figure here in just a moment. Now, of course, just like with the pirates in the story, there are also different types of Admirals. Some are considered just straight up bloodthirsty and ruthless, while others are a lot more kind-hearted and truly want to do the right thing. But the Admiral who probably falls straight in the middle of this scale is actually the former Admiral Sengoku. Now, when we first met this goat-loving man, he was the Fleet Admiral of the Marines, which is the highest ranking Marine in charge of literally the entire organization. And as far as we know, that means that he used to be an Admiral as well, which is the reason for his spot in this video. But what do we actually know about this man with the most beautiful afro in the story? Well, he's one of the few truly good Marines who will always try to do what is actually right. He's an incredible fighter, even at his old age, and is one of only 2 Marines actually confirmed to possess all 3 types of haki, including Conqueror's haki, though to be fair, probably most of the Admirals have that. Plus, he has the super awesome Golden Buddha Devil Fruit, which allows him to grow to this massive size and crush enemies with his giant fists and shockwaves. But not only that, he's also a true master tactician who planned the entire battle at Marineford and even trained 2 undercover Marines to sneak into pirate organizations as well. But that's not even the most impressive thing about Sengoku. Sengoku because this man has some truly crazy feats. For example, during his prime, he teamed up with the marine hero Garp here to take down the Golden Lion Shiki at Marineford. Then he unfortunately was ordered to command a buster call on the island of Ohara. He was also one of the few surviving marines that has top secret knowledge about the infamous Rocks pirates who almost conquered the entire world 40 years ago. And it is actually because of all this classified information that the world government refused to let Sengoku retire after the time skip, so he currently actually serves as an inspector general for the Marines, whatever that's supposed to be, where basically he just chills and eats his rice crackers the entire day. Although he did try to crush Luffy during his attempt to free Ace, and I think at this point he does know that Luffy is a quote-unquote good pirate, and I'm super curious to see if he would actually try to stop Luffy a second time should they meet again in the future. Fingers crossed. Which of course is something we probably cannot say about the current commander-in-chief of the world government, Kong. Now, this man comes up in a lot of videos about the Marines, but the simple fact is that we barely know anything about him. As commander-in-chief, he is technically even above the fleet admiral and serves as the direct link from world nobles to all of the military organization of the world government. But that's about it, and I only decided to include him here because I do assume that he used to be fleet admiral and then admiral before he was eventually promoted to his current, whatever this is supposed to be, kind of rank. So I guess hopefully he will play some sort of meaningful role in the future story. Now, at this point, I'm not quite certain, but another former admiral who's already playing a massive part of the final saga is Kuzan, also formerly known as Admiral Aokiji. And let's start with the fact that he was one of the original admirals at the start of the story, alongside the other powerhouses that we'll discuss in just a minute. Before he became an admiral though, Kuzan actually joined the Marines at a really young age and quickly worked his way through the ranks. And maybe that was because of his nice personality, or because of his training with Garp, or maybe it's simply his absolutely broken Ice Devil fruit, which allows him to turn into ice and freeze things at will, including the ocean. Which is just an absurdly powerful fruit to have in a world mostly covered by water and where the only weakness to Devil Fruit users is water, and Kuzan's incredible strength also caused one of Luffy's most shocking defeats in the entire story. I mean, wow, like Kuzan literally could have killed Luffy with a tiny flick of his finger, but instead of course chose to let him live. And that's actually not his only really hype moment though, because he also played a huge role in stopping the Emperor Whitebeard at Marineford, and he let Robin live when she was just a child. And speaking of his relationship with Robin, Kuzan has somewhat kept watch over Robin ever since she was a kid, claiming that if he ever felt her ability to read the poneglyphs was a threat to the world, then he would actually come after her. But that's not nearly the most important part of the story, because after the time skip, Kuzan dueled another admiral, who we'll discuss very soon, for the right to become fleet admiral as well. Now, unfortunately for him, Kuzan lost that duel and a leg, I guess, and has since actually left the Marines. But what completely stunned us was that he has actually joined the Blackbeard Pirates as one of the Emperor's 10 Titanic captains. Now, we still don't quite know why he chose to join Blackbeard in the first place. He could be an undercover spy still working for the Marines, or he could have some other dream that he wants to pursue with the pirates, but without spoilers, let's just say that after the Wano arc, he is working super hard to convince everyone that he really is a bad pirate now. And now, you might be thinking that since he has left the Marines, he no longer has a sense of justice, but I really think that Kuzan is still trying to figure out what his lazy justice actually means. And by lazy, I don't think it's just describing his personality, but instead it probably means that he doesn't truly know what the right thing to do is all the time. And so he often just lets things go, just like he did with Robin and Luffy. And speaking of Luffy, Kuzan served as our main character's first major interaction with an admiral, so I really wouldn't be surprised to see Kuzan fight Luffy at some point in the story one more time to really show how far Luffy has come since then. On the other hand, one admiral who will absolutely not be fighting Luffy is the blind Admiral Fujitora. Now, this character is our first step into the current admirals of the story, and boy did he make a major impact right away. Besides the super impressive fact that Fujitora was able to become this strong without being able to see, he has one of the most overpowered devil fruits in the entire story with the ability to control gravity. And on top of that, he has top tier observation haki and also incredible sword skills. So yeah, don't take this kind looking man lightly, but that's not even the most impressive thing about him, because his belief in humane justice, which encourages protecting innocent people above all else, really makes him somewhat stand out among the rest. And while we still don't know that much more about his backstory, we do know that he blinded himself at some point after seeing some truly horrific events somewhere in the world. And as a result, his strong beliefs actually very quickly ended up changing the entire world, because he was the main driving force in the pursuit to abolish the entire warlord system. And while this was a major blow to the overall strength of the world government, what made the Marines even angrier is that he publicly admitted that the world government had failed the people of Dressrosa and publicly apologized, which is just clearly stomping on the #1 rule of the Marines, which is to never admit that they did something wrong ever. Like, wow, this dude is bringing changes left and right, and we give a thumbs up for that, which all means that this is one admiral who clearly does align strongly with Luffy's philosophy of doing what is truly right for the people, and I would not be surprised if Fujitora eventually ends up switching sides and joining Luffy for the final fight to free the world. Which, funnily enough, might be exactly the opposite of Admiral Greenbull, also known as Aramaki, who we have recently learned is a major fanboy of the strongest admiral, coming up in just a moment. And without getting into too many spoilers yet, this man has quickly become a meme in the community for getting seriously embarrassed by Emperor Shanks, being dismissed by Luffy, and even for his Forest Logia powers sometimes comedic appearance. All jokes aside though, Greenbull is of course also a seriously strong fighter who was selected to become an admiral during the time skip. And just to show you that he isn't a complete pushover, in his first real appearance and getting serious, he easily defeated the Emperor Kaido's strongest commanders, plus he is sure to have a bigger role in the future of the story since he hasn't interacted with Luffy properly even once, which must mean that he will probably clash with him sometimes before the end of the story, since every other admiral so far has met Luffy and interacted with him at some point. Which I can 100% without a doubt say that the same is true for the current fleet admiral Sakazuki, formerly known as Admiral Akainu. And if you don't believe that this man is going to have a major impact on the end of One Piece, then I don't know what to tell you. He is literally the driving force of the Marines and will do anything in order to crush pirates, including, you know, kill some innocent civilians if he thinks it is for the greater good. And do I also need to remind you that this man wanted to wipe out all of the retreating pirates during the war at Marineford? Like, even after the Marines' goal had already been accomplished, Ace dead, Whitebeard dead, plus he's the only Marine that we have truly seen fight an emperor one-on-one during the story, and I guess kind of has the upper hand. Oh yeah, and I guess he also did this, you know, donut. So without a doubt, he's gotta fight Luffy at some point in the future of the story, and what a fight that will be, because I've no doubt that he is the strongest living Marine today, probably even stronger than Garp, at least right now. And now pretty much all of Sakazuki's feats occurring while working as an admiral, but after the time skip and his duel with Kuzan, he was basically promoted to fleet admiral to run the entire Marines, which means that he can now enforce his absolute justice and demand that everyone do whatever it takes to eliminate all the pirates. Unfortunately though, since that promotion, he has been mostly just sitting behind his desk and doing paperwork, but I'm certain that the Magma Fruit user will be coming back into the story very soon, right after he finishes that big pile of paper right here. But one other former admiral who sadly won't be appearing in the story anymore is Zephyr, who was an admiral even before Sengoku's time. And while Zephyr, who is actually also known as Zet, mostly appeared in the non-canon film Zet, his backstory is basically confirmed to be canon. Now, in case you don't know, Zephyr was basically this legendary admiral and instructor who trained all three of the original admirals and many of the most notable vice admirals like these. And while he was a true powerhouse fighter, he's the only current or former admiral we know of to actually die, and the saddest part is that he was killed by one of his former students here. And that would of course be Admiral Kizaru, who, if I'm being honest, might very well be even stronger than Sakazuki, maybe? I mean, he does have the legendary Light Devil Fruit, he is the last of the original admirals to still hold that rank, and he has fought against Luffy more times than any other marine in the story. For one, he nearly wiped out the entire Straw Hat crew during the Sabaody arc, and he was the main admiral preventing Luffy from saving Ace during the war at Marineford. And honestly, he did all of that while barely even breaking a sweat. Like seriously, I do kind of wonder if that's all he does, or if someday he's gonna show us what he actually can do and what a truly monstrous fighter he actually is, like we're kind of seeing on Egghead Islands. And on top of that, we do know a little bit about his backstory. For example, he did join the Marines at the kind of old age of 26 alongside Sakazuki. Then, as a vice admiral, he defeated the rampaging fisherman Arlong, and we've just recently learned that he is a lifelong friend of Dr. Vegapunk and his bodyguard. But despite all of this, Kizaru's unclear justice literally means that he usually doesn't really care too much about what is really going on. He really mostly just follows whatever orders he's being given, even if they are incredibly ruthless, and he doesn't even seem to care about the consequences as long as he obeys. Which honestly is a super interesting contrast for his kind of goofy personality that I absolutely love, but as we've seen recently in the manga, he will do literally whatever is asked of him, including killing his old friends. This is of course unless Luffy is able to stop him, and while this epic clash has rocked the entire world, it is clear that Kizaru is incredibly powerful because he's able to fight toe-to-toe with an Emperor level character like Luffy. But of course, as the newest addition to the Emperors, Luffy clearly isn't going to be defeated that easily, because that would throw the entire Emperor system into chaos. And if you actually want to know even more about the complex politics and power structure of the Emperor systems, who the original Emperors were, and so on and so forth, you can watch that video right here. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.